According to reporting from the UK outlet The Telegraph, Donald Trump's plan for Ukraine has been leaked. The document, which was published over the weekend, lays out what Trump is proposing for Ukraine, and it is much more significant than previously thought. Columnist Adam Zivo joined us from Europe for more on the proposal.
According to a leaked contract that was acquired by The Telegraph, Trump wants to impose a contract on Ukraine that would essentially allow the United States to confiscate $500 billion from the Ukrainian economy by gaining near total control over Ukraine's resource economy. So this contract, which was dated to February 7, 2025, would essentially create a joint investment fund between the United States and Ukraine. This investment fund is positioned as preventing hostile forces from benefiting from the reconstruction of Ukraine, but it actually constitutes the economic colonization of Ukraine by the United States. So this contract would essentially allow the United States to gain total control over Ukraine's minerals, oil and gas, and potentially other infrastructure. The United States would take 50% of revenues received by Ukraine from the extraction of its resources currently, and also would give the United States the exclusive right to establish the terms and conditions of all future licenses and projects relating to Ukraine's resource economy. And of all of those new projects that are, for example, championed by third parties, 50% of all the license revenue would be basically given to the United States, which is not fair at all. The United States would put a lien on such revenues so that the United States would basically have to be paid off first before Ukraine could use its revenue for its own purposes. And also the United States would be given the right of first refusal on the purchase of any exportable minerals. Interestingly enough, this contract would be governed by New York law, and Washington would be given sovereign immunity, and essentially would there'd be no recourse for Ukraine if it eventually wanted to renegotiate this contract. Experts who reviewed this contract have said that when you look at how much of Ukraine's GDP would be confiscated by the United States, Trump's deal would essentially impose higher costs on Ukraine than Germany faced after World War I. And this is truly unprecedented. There has never been a previous example of a country which was a victim of an invasion being forced to pay such high costs that are essentially reparations by one of its allies. And when you look at the numbers, they also don't even make any sense. The United States has only paid about $175 billion to Ukraine, most of which was actually paid to American companies to build new technology and new military weapons to replace the older weapons that were sent over to Ukraine. So much of that was actually economic stimulus for American manufacturers. Now, $170 billion is not nothing, but at the same time, it is not $500 billion, so it is unclear why the United States feels that Ukrainians have to pay over twice as much in economic value to the White House in exchange for military assistance, which in most cases, should have come at no cost, right? Military alliances are not supposed to be loans to this extent. A military alliance doesn't give one country the ability to confiscate a huge chunk of the economy of its partners. Now, one of the concerning things here is that if the Trump administration conceptualizes military alliances this way and wants to impose these reparations essentially upon Ukraine, that raises concerns about the United States' relationship with Canada. So if Canada will require further military assistance in the future, for example, if it needs to protect its Arctic sovereignty, will that give Trump an excuse to essentially confiscate our resource economy as well? Or will Trump say that Canada, by benefiting by the United States' security umbrella, now owes the United States access to its economy, much in the same way how Ukraine now owes the United States access to its resources? And then that, of course, loops into these conversations about whether or not the United States wants to annex Canada. If this kind of rhetoric is invoked in the Canadian context, that strengthens the case from the Republican standpoint of absorbing Canada, which is highly concerning. On the whole, I think this contract suggests that the United States can no longer be seen as a reliable security partner for Western democracies. Western democracies generally do not structure their military alliances in such a predatory way. This kind of predatory relationship is something which is often seen by China, or rather in China, which lends out money to potential allies to essentially gain control of their resources. But that is something that we have not seen in the United States to this extent and in this way up until this point.